Good day, everyone. This is co-host John Schlarbaum, here to inform you that a new companion book to the podcast is now out. Titled Music Virgin No More, I delve deeper into how my weekly charts began and why the music from the early 80s still influences the preferences of millions of listeners 45 years later. Again, the book is Music Virgin No More, a fun and easy read filled with facts about the singles, albums, and groups you still love today. Purchase your copy on Amazon for only $15, and thanks for downloading today's episode, which begins right now.
CJBK London, it's 154.
Welcome, music fans, to the Music Virgins No More podcast. Now here are your hosts, John and Jason.
Hello, and welcome to the Music Virgins No More podcast. I'm John Schlarbaum.
And I'm Jason Kavanaugh.
Now, this show is based on my memories of top 40 music between 1980 and 1982. You might add a little of 1979 in there as well. When between the ages of 13 and 16, I created weekly music charts alone in my bedroom in southwestern Ontario. Sounds like a fun time, doesn't it, Jason?
So sad, but no, it sounds great. I did the same thing, but later. Last week, we looked at the middle 3 weeks of November 1980. Today, we review the next 2 weeks, starting with chart number 15 for November 29th, which may be the most important chart of all 106 you made, John, as your man, the boss, Bruce Springsteen, makes his first appearance, debuting at number 4 on the singles chart with Hungry Heart.
Hungry Heart.
Yeah, it debuted at number 1 on the albums chart with The River, and most surprising at number 1 on the groups chart. Over previous shows, we've alluded to this week, and now that it is finally here, I have 2 questions. John, why didn't Hungry Heart enter at number 1 for the Bruce chart trifecta? And 2, when did you decide to switch the number 1 and 3 singles?
Both very good questions, Jason. So I think I've said this before, but like each week I really tried to give like my honest opinion as far as chart position and what I really, really liked, what I was very fond of, and what I was losing my interest in. So my belief as far as Hungry Heart entering at number 4 instead of number 1 was, I believe I technically only owned it, and that was one of the things, you had to own a copy of it for one day. And I didn't think it was fair to the top 3 songs from the previous week to simply have Bruce enter at number 1. So I was being a nice guy to, last week's top 3.
Yet that is exactly what happened on the albums chart.
I didn't say it was a perfect week, but in all fairness, the 20 new River songs that week were now my favorite collections of tunes. And also I had already bought Queen's The Game album way back in July, and had already played those 10 songs to death for like 5 months.
Rightfully so.
It was time for a change at the top, Jason. Like, as much as I love Queen and The Game, The River just seemed like, hey, this is new, and hey, it is my favorite album of the week. So let's do that.
Okay, I'll give you that one. A few shows back, we discussed how you changed your mind about certain rankings after typing up your list fiercely on your typewriter.
Tap, tap, tap.
This appears to be the case with the handwritten changes that had John Lennon leap into number 1 single spot, and AC/DC's You Shook Me All Night Long falling sadly out of the number 1 position after 2 weeks.
Now, when you reference the previous week's chart, John Lennon's Just Like Starting Over had jumped from number 12 to number 3. So really, it's not a huge leap of faith to think that it could hit the number 1, the very top spot. But looking back personally, looking at this specific week, I'm happy to know that he hit number 1 before his untimely death on December 8th, 1980. And it wasn't, some knee-jerk reaction to that event and that tragedy, which actually occurred on so many other legitimate charts around the world. So he was legitimately number 1 before his death, before all the publicity, before all the crying, and that. So really, it was a legitimate number one, as far as I'm concerned.
With these songs trading places, Devo's Whip It would
Whip It
succumb
Good.
to the number 2 curse and never go higher. During the 2-year course of charts, it would be one of the 5 singles to be held back by 2 different number ones. The others, Under Pressure, Queen and David Bowie, great song, and Angel of the Morning.
Juice Newton. She was also the Queen of Hearts. That was the next song. She sort of came out of nowhere. I believe Angel of the Morning was a remake, and she sort of came out of nowhere and took the country world by storm for a few years. But Angel of the Morning, hit number 2 at some point in time.
Right, and then there was...
What are the other two? So we got Under Pressure to get to number 2. Really, when I look back, I'm like, I don't know how it got up that high. But anyways, it didn't hit number 1. Two other songs. It got stuck at number 2 for a few weeks. It did not go to number 1, which I'm really, when I look back now, Jason, I'm really happy about.
Well, and those 2 songs are All Night Long by Joe Walsh.
Poor Joe Walsh. He was at number 2, I think, for 4 weeks straight. He probably should have been number 1, but I forget what the other 2 songs are. We'll look it up later, maybe.
I feel like that's pretty representative of Joe Walsh's life. Just kind of always in the number 2
He's
spot.
there. He's there. He's good.
And the last one is When It's Over by Loverboy.
Loverboy. Everybody loved Loverboy at the time. And again, that song, when it came out, it was just like a huge song, and it's like kind of ballady. It's very 80s rock ballady, right? If you know the Loverboy catalog, which I'm sure you do, because they're like one of the best Canadian bands of all time, really, right up there with, the Guess Who and such.
I feel like you kind of had to be there.
You might have had to be there. But I saw Loverboy like a couple of years ago. He was, at Windsor, the Windsor Casino. My partner Lori and I went to see him because she, grew up. She knew Loverboy and everything. And the opening band was a band called Trooper, which she had never heard of in her entire life. And I'm like, no, you would know these songs. We're here for a good time, not a long time. She's like, nope. And the guys, they came out from Trooper. And again, these guys have been around for like 40 years and they sounded fantastic. I knew it was a very short set, but I knew every one of their songs. And she just looked at me. She's like, where's Loverboy?
Maybe she should be on this podcast.
She might be. She should really. It would be a short. I have no idea what he's talking about, Jason. I never heard of that song. I don't know this band, but unfortunately, I keep hearing this frickin' song over and over on long road trips, and I still don't get it. If it wasn't big in the States in Detroit, I didn't hear it. But if it was Canadian, I certainly didn't hear it. So we have very, very different. We have similar. We do have like good similar music tastes, but there are a lot of. I love this song. Oh my God, this is one of my favorite songs. And she'll look at me and go, I don't get it. Honestly, do not understand. Sometimes opposites attract, right? We can't all love Donnie Iris. I mean, some of us should know who Donnie Iris is.
That brings up a good point of kind of why we started this podcast, or something I found interesting when we had first talked about all this is you had a very unique perspective living exactly where you lived at that exact moment in time, because you had, you lived 250 kilometers north of the border. So you had, Canadian content forced upon you with the CanCon rules and on Canadian radio stations, but you did get the leak of American stuff over. But if you grew up 200 kilometers south of that in Windsor, you got mostly American radio. You did get some Canadian stuff, but usually you could just flip the station because it was more exciting. There were better songs. There was more options. For the most part, better songs coming out of the U.S.
Right. And my partner, Lori, I mean, she grew up around here. So, I mean, a lot of the stations she listened to were these Detroit stations who, couldn't care less about, Canadian artists unless it's, some really big band that has just taken the world by storm and that. But they didn't, have to play a certain amount of, Canadian songs. But, over here, like growing up, I didn't know that. I just, again, you would hear a song go, wow, I really like that. Oh, they're Canadian. That's cool. But here in the Windsor area, I would get CKLW, the Big Eight, which was, if you talk to like people like Bob Seger and Alice Cooper and other bands, like big bands, they got their break because of CKLW in Windsor. And I would get that AM station, but I wouldn't get any of the FM stations that Lori would have been listening to and all her friends would be listening to all the time. They was just too far away. Than the FM stations I was getting from London, they weren't really that great. And I would just listen to the top 40, the two London stations, basically CJBK and CKSL, which, very, similar formats. I mean, it was top 40 radio. So again, just because of the geographic area, if I would have been an hour closer to Windsor, then I probably would have, or my older brother and older sister probably would have been listening to the FM, Detroit stations. We just didn't have that kind of variety where we were, even though we're not that far away from anyone, or right across from, Lake Erie on a clear night. Sometimes you would get a FM station from Cleveland, and that would be kind of cool, but it wouldn't be something like, ooh, I'm going to listen to that tonight. If it came in, it came in, but you would hear a song here and there that maybe you didn't hear in London or West Lorne.
Now, did you get Toronto radio as well? Did it leak down? Because that's almost equidistant. Like at that point, right? West Lorne is almost halfway between
the world and nowhere. Yes.
Detroit and Toronto.
No, we really didn't. I mean, you would get my growing up was the sort of like 2 AM stations in London, and there was 1 FM station, I think. And sometimes you would get, I don't know if you could get the University of the Western University radio station somehow, but it was almost like an indie station that you would get. But I didn't really like their music at the time, so no, I was pretty closeted. There's no streaming services or anything, right? You bought a 45 and you just put on repeat on your record player, and an hour went by and you're like, I think I know all the words, maybe, kind of, sort of.
Well, I think that fact, that geographical limitation really helped influence the uniqueness of your charts.
Oh, I think so. And again, the top 40, we said this before. I mean, the top 40 radio was the amount of different genres that are played one right after the other. I mean, you just cannot emphasize that enough. And kids these days, or young adults or people in their 20s or even 30s, cannot even figure, what do you mean you had a country song played, the next song was a new wave song, the next song was a punk song, the next song was a ballad. So it was very good that way. I mean, you got such a different range of songs, and I went sort of top 40 melodic poppy stuff more than anything. But I know people who, that I grew up with, I mean, once I got to college and that, I mean, they sort of went off into different areas that, I had no interest in. Everybody has their own tastes.
That experience is still happening in northern communities in Canada, where they only have 1 radio station. So it's the same sort of thing where they just play through, the top 3 in country, top 4 in pop, top 2 in whatever. And then they'll do French for an hour.
Okay.
It's pretty interesting. That's like when I'm up near Timmins, Ontario, that's all you get, 1 station. And
oh, geez.
You can drive in to get groceries and have quite the wild ride of music. AC/DC 1 second and then Luke Bryan the next.
Right. Again, I find it interesting with down here, like it's an iHeartRadio station, but it's like one of the country stations down here. And, they have a 30-second commercial about, the latest in country and all this. And, there's a few artists that I have no idea who they are. And then they'll throw on a Lady Antebellum song that is like 15 years old. And I'm like, you guys couldn't have figured out that song is the one that you're pushing your radio station for like the newest songs. Like, it just seems very odd to me. We have the hottest country, but here's a song that everybody was tired of after a month and a half, 15 years ago, that we're still going to push. And I'm like, this doesn't seem right. Like, show me, somebody new who's up and coming that I'm like, oh, I like her voice. Like, I know we can't call them Lady Antebellum anymore. They're Lady A, but still.
It's like that Gautier song, Someone I Used to Know, or Somebody I Used to Know.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Somewhere. All right, so back to the charts. So elsewhere on this week's singles chart, we had the Cars Touch and Go. Actually, they went after 8 weeks, hitting number 6 at its peak. And the previous week's new entries, number 1, More Than I Can Say by Leo Sayer, and I'm Coming Out by Diana Ross. They each had minor upward momentum. Nothing huge, but I mean, they were more popular this week than they were last week.
For the most part, on the albums chart, The River bumped everyone else down one spot, with Billy Joel's March release, Glass Houses, finally dropping out of the top 10. Timely, Billy Joel has a new single in the charts for the first time in, 25 years? And it's actually really good.
25, 30 years, yeah.
Yeah, I like it. It caught me by surprise. I like Billy Joel a lot. And I thought, oh no, this is scary. And I pressed play and was thoroughly impressed.
I think he's going to, if he was going to bring out a song, he was going to bring out a song that sounded good and the production was correct. And, the words and everything, you listen to it and go, oh, that's Billy Joel. It's sort of like, a new Bob Seger song comes out after, 15 years and you listen to it and go, oh, that's a Bob Seger song. Now, I'm not saying like the new Billy Joel song, like it's good, but I'm also not putting it into heavy rotation. To me, it's like an album cut that, oh, he has something new. Oh, that's nice. And it's nice. Wasn't blown away by it. Apparently, he didn't even want to sing it because of his rule about not bringing out, any new music. And he wanted Adele to sing it.
I heard that, yeah.
So,
from outward appearances, it would seem that The River was the album that forever hooked you on Springsteen's music. But that apparently wasn't the case.
So technically, this was my second Bruce album. It's only been out for like a week or two to start off with. I loved Hungry Heart, but I had received his classic Born to Run album on the Thursday, and my dad got me The River the following day on the Friday. So like the 1975, his breakthrough album, Born to Run, his third album, it literally blew me away, Jason. Like, I liked it because the songs weren't in that, 2.5 minute to 3.5 minute, verse / chorus, verse / chorus / bridge / chorus, format that I was used to hearing. They were like story songs, which I got completely into. Like they were epic tales, that I played with my headphones on, and it made me feel when I was listening to these songs, like I was watching them on like a 500-foot, movie screen. So, I got that album. And again, I really had 0 point of reference for Bruce Springsteen before I put on Born to Run and The Needle hit Thunder Road, and it was all over. So at this point in time, the next day I get The River, but in between is the follow-up album to Born to Run, which was Darkness on the Edge of Town in 1978. Which Springsteen was doing, it had a completely different tone and style to it to Born to Run. So at this point in time, not knowing Darkness yet, I was really excited to delve into like this new double album and experience the latest larger than life adventures. I was stoked, Jason.
Okay, and did The River deliver then?
Truthfully, I was slightly disappointed. Like, don't get me wrong, like there's like several very compelling like story songs that echoed his past work, the title track, obviously The River, but there's also like Independence Day and Point Blank and Stolen Car and Drive All Night. And these songs have become, part of the Springsteen canon of, how great a songwriter was. But on the other hand, like as a listener, what really threw me off was a number of these other sort of intertwined party bar band type songs with titles like Out in the Street, You Can Look But You Better Not Touch, Cadillac Ranch, I'm a Rocker, Crush on You. And these seemed to me like they were like throwaway songs compared to Jungle Land on Born to Run or Badlands on The Darkness on the Edge of Town. And it really kind of, I'm like, it's one of those things where you look at it and go, wow, this double album, could this have been made into a really good single album, right? We've all had that discussion with ourselves or other people, right? Like when it comes to the Beatles, the White Album, or Tusk, by Fleetwood Mac. We've had these discussions, right, Jason?
Yes. I believe we both have playlists that include and exclude certain songs. Oh, Daddy.
I have a fantastic Tusk album, which is the same length as Rumors was. That sounds fantastic if you get rid of 90% of Lindsey Buckingham's, experimental solo album stuff. But we digress. So this double album comes out, and I love some of the songs, like they're heavy and they're good. And then you have these like throwaway songs, which I just thought he was, he sort of lost his mind. It's like, why are you doing this? But having read Bruce's 2016 autobiography and probably a dozen other biographies of his over the years, like I understand why this happened and why. He had a single LP that he had initially submitted to Columbia Records, and it was titled The Ties That Bind in 1979. He just didn't think it was grand enough for all of his ideas at the time. I didn't know any of this. I had two albums. I had Born to Run, and then I had this brand new The River, which, back in November 1980, I was left a bit confused. I wanted more Born to Run type of songs, or serious ones like The Darkness, when I finally got The Darkness. And really, it's sort of a wish that has never quite been fulfilled, even after all these years with subsequent Springsteen albums.
Well, Bruce would, of course, continue telling, stark, compelling stories again on his next homemade album. And my favorite or second favorite, it's a hard one, Nebraska.
Nebraska, yes.
Yeah. It was released on September 30th, 1982, 4.5 weeks after you discontinued making your charts.
Missed it by that much.
Looking back, how do you think it would have fared on the album chart? I mean, it wasn't a pop album. Do you think you would have even have gotten it at that point?
No. I got it because it was, sort of like a big deal. And again, at this point in time, I would have been subscribing to Rolling Stone magazine, and they were very good. I mean, really, at the time, if there was any kind of Springsteens in the studio, or we hear that Bruce is doing this, or he might be doing this, like Rolling Stone magazine was a very huge advocate for him and his music. So by the time Nebraska, showed up, it was like the next album, and you had to go and get it. And I went and I got it. Now, like you said, it's 4.5 weeks after I stopped my charts, sadly. But I do know at the end of 1982, I still made year-end charts for another several years. So in 1982, Nebraska ended up my number 7 album of the year. But more importantly, Jason, on the chart in brackets, I included which albums had hit number 1, and Nebraska was one of those 8 albums. So when it did come out, I was very stoked about it. I listened to it. I loved it. And again, it was completely different to, The River, and by this time, Darkness and Born to Run, and his first 2 albums. And I really enjoyed it and thought very highly of it, upon its release.
Well, truly, we could probably do an entire show on Nebraska. But until then...
There's whole books. There's a brand new book came out in 2023, but it was like a fantastic book, was just about the making of Nebraska, how he got to that point and why he did it and everything. I mean, Nebraska was the start of what everybody knows is Born in the USA.
The book you're talking about is called "Deliver Me from Nowhere."
There you go. Everybody should get that book or listen to the audiobook. It's fascinating if you want to know how this album came about and why it was even released at some point in time. The technical difficulties and little quirks about the machine that he was playing it on and dubbing it on and mixing it down on, and a boom box that was thrown into a river at one point in time.
He carried around what ended up being the master tape in his pocket for months. I mean,
like it's a crazy story.
How easy it is to damage a cassette tape. Did he carry a pencil with him too? That was the master tape, John.
No, I know. It's a crazy, just the story about that cassette tape. And you think about it now and you're like, Did he put in it? Is it in his front pocket, or is it in his jeans? Is it back pocket? So on one side you have the outline of his wallet, that's in the left-hand side, and then the other side is the outline of this cassette tape box.
Well, hey, if it's in his back pocket, little did the label know what kind of hit album he was sitting on at the time.
And, for a lot of people, like Born to Run or Born in the USA is like his pinnacle. And you're just like, you listen to it now and go, hey, it was good. It was okay. But you listen to like real artists and musicians, and they will say, Nebraska is what changed my mind about what music could be, do it yourself. And again, it was right at the time where these little 4-track mixing boards and that you could make an album in your room and it would sell, and it didn't matter who you were. And it just gave everybody that extra little, I don't know, I have this song, but I'd have to get a recording studio. Now they're like, it's like a laptop computer, right? Oh, I can do this all at, in my bedroom. I can type this up. I don't need a, lug out, a typewriter. I don't have to go somewhere to print anything off. So Nebraska hit at a certain time, and it really opened up so many people's minds of what can be done. What you listen to today on, re-releases of it and special editions, like it's the same album. Like they don't do a lot of tinkering with it because they couldn't, right?
Yes. And as I said, we could do a whole show on Nebraska. Maybe we will. But until then, let's take a look at chart number 16 for the first week of December 1980.
Okay. So by the week ending December 6th, you would think, with Christmas approaching, I'd be in London a few times to have my, my braces tightened. If people don't get that reference, go back a couple shows. Or to simply, buy gifts for my family and friends or, myself. However, in the final 4 weeks of the year, only 2 new albums and 3 new singles, 2 of them taken from these new albums, debuted. So not a lot of new music is coming up at the end of the year.
No, the only real shocking development was that Springsteen's Hungry Heart finally hit number 1 after 2 weeks, bumping John Lennon to number 2 after 1 week in that spot. These songs would remain in these positions for the next 4 weeks.
I'm certain Lennon's untimely passing and all the media coverage played a role, although I really had liked these songs, and there wouldn't be much competition until mid-January 1981 anyway. So these are my top 2 songs, and they were locked in.
The Police's Da-Da-Da-Da, the second single off their latest album, debuted at number 11, even though the first single, Don't Stand So Close to Me, was at number 6 after only 5 weeks in the charts.
Now, Don't Stand So Close to Me was released on September 19th with this new single, released 2 months later on November 20th, which seems like a really quick turnaround, but, I guess explains it explains the overlap, but I don't know why Don't Stand So Close to Me. It had, a lot of airplay. It was doing really well. I mean, today on streaming services, they rush out new singles every week. Oh, here's a new single. Oh, here's a new single. Oh, here's a new single. But I don't think the Police, I think they could have given Don't Stand So Close to Me a few more weeks.
A few more weeks to steep.
Well, yeah, like, continue to go up the thing. Maybe they were thinking November 20th, this is going to help with Christmas sales, right?
Right.
I'm not a marketing genius, obviously. When it comes to records.
Well, on the groups and albums charts, the Police snagged both faster mover arrows on the otherwise very uneventful week.
Their third album, Zenyatta Mondatta, was actually the first album of theirs that I owned. And it would sort of be ultimately, become this like juggernaut of sorts on my album rankings over time, even though it didn't look like it yet. Now, the funny thing is that it would hit number 1 in its 11th week on the chart, dethroning My Boy Bruce. And it would stay there for 8 weeks between January 17th and March 7th, 1981. And it would remain in the top 5 for 21 straight weeks, which is the same length as The River. So somehow these 2 albums were my best 2 albums for a very long time. But they were also they were just very different, I think.
So what happened? Did you get sick of the river, or did the police just sort of speak to you all of a sudden?
I think it's a little bit of both. Zenyatta Mondatta and the river, they charted for the same length of time, 26 weeks. I think one of the things was there was a lack of any new singles from the river. That also held it back a bit, although I had, these 20 new songs from Bruce compared to, only 9 new songs from Sting and the Boys. 2 of the songs on their album were instrumentals. So after A Hungry Heart, they only released one other single called Fade Away, which is, the sort of the slow balladry story song. It's a good song, but it really didn't represent the album, as a whole. And I've always wondered why more songs from that album, weren't released to the radio.
Well, I think they learned their lesson a few years later with the 12-song Born in the USA, from which 7 top 10 songs were released as singles.
And in my humble opinion, the craziest thing is that the best song on Born in the USA, a song called Downbound Train, which was written during the acoustic Nebraska sessions, wasn't released as a single. It is the best song on that album. Today, 40 years later.
Lyrically, I agree. The performance, I think it would have been better suited on Nebraska. It was
okay.
The dynamic range with the band just didn't really match the lyrics to me. Like you were talking about with Born to Run, you close your eyes and you've got that 500-foot drive-in movie screen where you can just imagine, feel like those lyrics in Downbound Train, you could have got there if it was just Bruce in his bedroom recording to that 4-track. I think I could have closed my eyes and created this world. But
right,
I felt like the band version was just so sort of one note and didn't grow anywhere. Like even when he gets to the bridge, the song quiets right down, but not really. It should. It feels like it should. Like, Max stops playing and there's no bass, there's no whatever. But it still just kind of sits all the same. So that's I don't agree. But I think if it came out of Nebraska, it would have been up there, with Johnny 99 and Atlantic City and all that for me. But
right. And again, I mean, that was one of the big problems that, the Nebraska sessions were, he was starting to write music for, this next big album, which is going to be a rock album. And they took all these, songs into the band, and there may or may not be an electric Nebraska version out there somewhere. It might be released someday, but some of the songs, he said this isn't working, and that's why Nebraska essentially is released, because they couldn't get it done with the full band, or he didn't feel like it was working. I think he said in that book that we were just talking about, like I lose my people once you get into the band, like their stories and that. And I think Downbound Train, I think it kind of works, but I know what you mean, that if it would have been on Nebraska, you just would have had this, devastating, song. But I think it really works well on Born in the USA, and maybe because it's a Nebraska song, that's why it is, to me, the best song on the album. Okay, enough for Bruce Springsteen for this episode. We'll close this episode by asking everybody to be sure to like and follow our Facebook and Instagram pages, where you'll find relevant pictures, information, and of course the actual typewritten charts to review and debate amongst yourselves, friends, and families.
And while you're there on the social media pages, please let us know, what you loved in the early 80s, or even what were you thinking type things. Maybe you think Springsteen was what were you thinking? We'd love to hear from you either way. Maybe not John, but
I'm open to anything. I had a discussion with somebody a couple of years ago, and I hadn't seen him in years, and he was a big musician. He was a radio DJ, and he worked at a guitar store in Toronto, but he sort of went in one direction. I went, as we grew up, went in another direction, but yeah, like we were just talking about music, and I said something about, wow, my favorite's like Bruce Springsteen. It's like, wow, never got him. Don't like him at all. I'm like, all right. And I guess you're paying for dinner then. And we left friends. But I've had that discussion with a few people. Like they just, for whatever reason, they don't get it. And again, I don't know if it's just because of my age at the time and you hear certain things that it becomes more important to you as you grow up. Somebody listening to, Hungry Heart or The River for the album for the first time and they don't know anything about it went, that was okay. It was no REO Speedwagon, but, it was okay. And other people say it's their favorite album of all time. I used to work in a record department in a department store when I was in college, Jason. I don't know if I've ever told you the story, but there was a female coworker and we were both about, the same age, early 20s. And, luckily she was a huge Springsteen fan. And, one night we were talking about it at the store and I says, put the albums in order. And, I put number one, Born to Run, then Darkness. This is probably 85 or so. So maybe Born in the USA might have been up there, but yeah, she looked at me like I was an alien and she goes, my favorite album's The River. And I'm like, oh, okay. Like, I mean, there's parts of it I like, but like that was her number one. Like ultimately, whatever he's released, and she had all his albums, like that was her number one. And I'm like, okay, we can still co-work together, I guess. So anyways, all right. So everybody out there in podcast land, be sure to check us out next week when we review the final weeks of 1980. Until then, keep rocking like there's no tomorrow, and thank you for listening.
The Music Virgins No More podcast was recorded in Amherstburg, Ontario and Lloydminster, Alberta.